in the making it happen process. In terms of our approach, we have a network and it has a certain capability and a focus and a composition. But we, as a response to this new agenda, are intensifying our knowledge and connection with various waste producers. I'll say a bit more about that in a minute. We also need to find people willing to collect the waste, people to process it and developers, and people to make use of the outputs. And we need to take a supply chain management approach to getting all that information together and then mapping it out. We're starting to do that in more elaborate ways with GIS mapping, for example, to inform and better guide our activity. But you can't get away from the fact that it is quite time intensive, or can be time intensive, getting this information together. That increasingly, as more capacity grows, the wastes are smaller in quantity and more dispersed. So we need to introduce a certain amount of innovation in this collection of data. So we are increasing our membership and our knowledge of organisations in the hospitality sector, prison sector, and also with food and drink manufacturers, of course. But increasingly, we're having to make better connection with third-party providers, FM providers. We deal with many large corporates, and we think they'll be able to give us their food waste and help us redirect it to a better purpose. But quite often they'll say, well, actually, you need to speak to our facilities management provider, who's a often outsourced individual or organisation. So that's an effort from ourselves on a national basis and also regional basis. But we are also connected with other, we call them solution providers, essentially in vessel composting, the windrow wormeries, we've used for paper waste, for example, land spreaders, energy from waste incinerators, the logistics companies and the brokers. So we have an awareness of the wider sector. And the findings that we have is that much organic material is already used in animal feed, spread to land, or used in other ways in some of those other technologies which I mentioned. The other issues are that the fact is anaerobic digestion is a capital-intensive exercise, and therefore it attracts a certain gate fee. And the challenge really is to use the opportunity to sell power, for example, to try and bring that gate fee down. But essentially, it is an economic challenge to present AD as an attractive option to these producers of organic waste versus the other alternatives which we mentioned. Finding the right digested outlets is also a challenge in that there could be a certain window, and most of the digestate does get spread to land, but you may only have a certain window of a few weeks at a certain time of year to do that. So possibly storage could be an issue, and there could be a cost for that. Once the food waste has been squashed out of the packaged material, the plastic residue that's left behind, we'd love to find a better home with ultimately, but essentially much of it's either landfilled or sent for incineration, hopefully energy from waste recovery there. As I mentioned, distributed feedstock, there are smaller unsegregated volumes to go for. And equally, the collection infrastructure is improving in light of the increasing demand for AD solutions. But also, we need to be aware of the new entrants which are coming to the market and make sure that, hopefully working with the local authorities as well, that there's the optimal siting of various plants. I know in Holland they had a rush for AD a few years ago. They're a few years ahead of us, and there was overcapacity in there, and hopefully we'll be avoiding that in this region. So let's have a look at a case study to really show how we've worked with one opportunity. John Poynton & Sons have the largest rendering site facility in the UK. This is in the Midlands region, and they were looking to diversify their business into energy from waste using tallow. So they contacted us, and we have a certain amount of information on our database anyway, and then we conducted out a systematic survey within the 65-mile radius of that site for other sources. We also contacted our members, so those which might be able to provide disposal routes and improve the viability, and then help them build a commercial case because they put in a successful application for grant funding. I think they got over £1 million for this facility through RAP and also the Regional Development Agency in the area, AWM. We facilitated introduction to suppliers, And I think this particular project is going to be up and running towards the end of this year, in September time, taking anything between 60 to 80,000 tonnes per year of organic waste and creating several jobs in the process. And we're continuing to signpost volumes of organic feedstocks to this particular organisation. Secondly, we came across, this one's from Scotland, a biofuels company making biodiesel and had glycerol as a byproduct, costing about £90 a tonne for disposal there. So we know that that's an appropriate input for an AD process, an AD plant, this one in Aberdeenshire. We found a farm with an AD plant on it, and they used the glycerol as a feedstock for that. And that sort of really helped greatly with that particular biodiesel manufacturer. So, in summary, we help AD developers identify and connect with local feedstock. Now, we do ideally hope assist with project viability, but it is subject to the availability of the resource in that particular location and factors that affect this viability. The presumption of increasing material segregation in all sectors and waste categories. Competition for input materials from those other solutions like the investment composting and others. Successfully realising the values from the outputs, such as the heat generated and electricity to grid. There could be a threat of other technologies, the other maybe one or two cheaper alternatives competing for the same resource. Also other AD developers in the area. That it's helpful to know that the grants and subsidies are going to be secure and not changing. But overall, we feel that the picture is promising and growing, particularly in this region. Now, we have two prominent members from our East of England team, Rob Bresler and Steve Pearce, who are here today. They've been manning the stand robustly today, and I'd advise you to contact them at the break and towards the end of the day to find out more about the event. Those are their contact details. And equally, if you're interested in joining this, further information on our national website and our help number there. And I can't say anything else but to say, if you are interested in the doing side, please remember our event on the 16th of June. Look at the information on the back of your programme today and get in touch with the details on the back, or find Mr. Bresler and Mr. Pearce. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much, not least for keeping absolutely to time. So we are now ready for that most important subject of what is bankable. And so I'm going to introduce Dan Poulsen, who's the Managing Director of AdGen Energy. Dan.
Whatever I say is going to be wrong, because it's either the wrong time because we all want to sleep after lunch, or it's wrong because your specific experience, or what you want to be your specific experience, is going to be very different from what I'm about to lay down as the law. Be prepared for me to be wrong and be happy with that. If you can get cheaper money or you can get a deal away, fantastic. But generally, what I want to talk through are lessons from experience from projects that we've seen go through to financial close or fail to go through to financial close. There is a huge amount of enthusiasm for renewable energy projects in the UK. I've been an enthusiast since 1987, when I went out to the States to look at wind, and because that was rubbish, for deep geothermal, and have watched and looked for the day when renewable energy projects become rational economically ever since. And the time is coming, and there are some projects which deserve to be financed. But there is an awful lot more talk, and there have been many years when these projects haven't got off to a flying start. So be prepared for some of the great dreams not to happen.